clients, are looking for either of three things. They're like, I want more leads, I want more opportunities, I want more accounts to talk to. So the volume is a critical, aspect of that. The spends, I want to spend less and get more. So there's an impact on, cost per lead, cost per click, cost per opportunity, cost per acquisition. And then finally, there's quality. I want better leads and how would they define it, A, B, C, D, depending on time to purchase. And there's a whole lot of criteria for that. But basically, volume, I want more. Spends, I want to spend less. And quality, I want better quality, are the three customer, success trifecta pillars. And the challenge is that as you want to increase your leads, your spends have to go up, because once the marginal return on investment reduces, then you have to spend more to acquire the incremental customers. So the more leads you need, the more you have to spend. And when it comes to actual spends, if you want to reduce your spends, reduce your cost of click, cost of lead, cost of opportunity, then it has an impact on volume. So this is something that needs to be addressed, and that has to be it has to be a balancing act. And finally, quality is like a completely different variable where which is more subjective, so much deeper in the funnel. So instead of looking at the lead quality or looking at even like opportunity quality, with the kind of technology that we have now, we can look at the actual customers that we have, and say that, and look at the revenue impact of campaigns and connect from source to close. So there is an impact in terms of like, if you want more volume, your quality is going to go down. So it's a balancing act of trying to take all these levers and adjust them so that you can get the right. And there are strategies in terms of what you can do to address that, in terms of the kind of ads that you're running, the kind of keywords that you're selecting. MarianaIQ will talk about how you can go about hyper targeting and selecting your audiences more effectively. Then once you have your database, that's when a player like Position² comes in, and then we figured out what are some of the keywords that show intent to target them. Is it more top of the funnel and middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel? Then there's impacts, and we'll talk a little bit about the kind of keywords you select, the kind of ads you're using to filter out consumer intent, to filter out folks who are looking for more for jobs or for information that's not relevant to what you're trying to offer. And so we'll talk more about that. So Margot, next slide, please. Now, this was an interesting research, that was done, by WordStream, and what they found is that, across different industry types, the conversion rates are, as you can imagine, are all over the place, and the median conversion rate for B2B, the one that's highlighted, is around 2%, which means 50% of folks are below that and 50% are above that. And the top 25% of campaigns are double that at 4%. But on an average, B2B conversion rates are lower, and this is, as a trend, it's declining. So as a trend, B2B conversion rates are going down. However, there is this segment at the top 10% that is able to break out of that low conversion rate zone and improve. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the strategies that you can deploy to improve the conversion rate with better targeting, with better keyword selection, with better ads, and leveraging some of the more the newer tools that Google AdWords has to offer to be able to have better conversations with your clients. Margo, next slide. So one of the reality of our business, something that we often don't like to talk about, is the ad spend that gets wasted, and less than 6% of keywords produce 100% of conversions. Attribution is still an area that the industry is working upon, but last click seems to still be the dominant way of tracking conversions, and that does not give you visibility into all the assist keywords, all the awareness related keywords. So it's still still a challenge. But however, the point that we want to drive over here is that that a lot of your keywords that for a lot of the campaigns that we've seen, that we've taken over, they are driving absolutely no ROI, and they are triggering for keywords that absolutely don't map to your intent for your audiences, and it's critical to try and separate from the noise and select that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Margot, next slide, please. So since Google started facing competition with LinkedIn and with Facebook, and those networks started talking more about audiences, Google has doubled down and focused more on audience-based targeting. And so one of the interesting features that they have is you can take your entire CRM and you can match against your target audience against the Google audience, and this is across Android as well as like Google, folks who are signed into Google accounts. Google has over 1 billion accounts on record, and obviously this includes multiple email addresses, but there's a fairly decent match rate of 40 to 50%, and you can try and improve that with technologies like MarianaIQ that can help you directly get even more as you try to build your account list, and Venkat is going to talk about that. You can start building your database to be more effective. But 40 to 50% is the thumb rule of how many folks in your CRM that you can match for the target accounts that you have. And this requires alignment between marketing and sales. Sales provides you all the insights in terms of how to segment them. Small business, folks who are in the more small and medium-sized businesses in a separate bucket. Enterprise customers in a separate bucket. Geography is another way. Like a lot of sales team are defined, so you may want to have lists based on geography also. There's lots of different ways to try and segment that, and we'll talk a little bit about that soon. On the remarketing side, so anyone who's visiting your website is potentially showing an interest in voting and saying that, okay, I'm interested, especially folks, let's say, who are visiting your trial page or visiting a page that is more involved. It's not something that, someone with, less interest is going to visit. So taking those and developing different buckets of, those who have visited 3 pages of my website, I want to create a separate remarketing list. Google has restrictions in terms of how you can target. So typically they require at least like 100 folks in your list to be able to target the Google network of websites. While if you just want to use search, if you want to retarget, remarket on search, then you need at least 1,000 folks in your list to be able to remarket, them. And obviously there are restrictions on healthcare, on like, if you're, and how you can target them using parameters like additional parameters like geography. So the thumb rule is basically that Google does not want you to use personally identifiable information to try and like, identify any person and make them uncomfortable. So as long as you keep that rule in mind, you can run more effective campaigns. And finally, besides remarketing, which you should be using with a lot of different criteria, because you'll have a lot of visitors who are tire kickers, so using it with the right keyword segments, using it right, for device separation can help you run more effective campaigns. So on the non-search side, Google has like, Google opens up the entire ecosystem. So Gmail is an incredibly powerful way where you only have 2 ads that you're competing with in total, so you just compete with one other ad. YouTube is another interesting, place where you can target within specific accounts the audiences that you're matched with. You can now either run video campaigns, you can run campaigns that are content-oriented. Someone who's interested in a how-to video on how to, integrate CRM, you can have an integration white paper or integration guide. So connecting it to content that connects with the intent that they are displaying by what they're watching or by the action that they're doing. And shopping is another area where they could be potentially, depending on which business segments you target, where you can target your audiences across. So you have like access to several thousand websites, and this is interesting in terms of trying out. In terms of segmentation, you can segment by accounts, the whole small and medium size go into separate buckets, large go into different. You can do it by product, so product for CRM software versus product for antivirus software, depending on all the different products that you have in your portfolio, by solutions, by industry verticals. Healthcare has a different messaging and separate customer path that you lay out versus financial, or any other regulatory, regulated, industry. By funnel phase, so top of the funnel have different messaging. Top of the funnel is more, because they are more in the education phase, you give them, you offer them content that's like, watch a video. And as they go much deeper in the funnel, bottom of the funnel, then you offer more. Here's like, case studies that you may be interested in. You can do it by last action. So what's the last action that they take? Oh, this person has watched a video. Maybe the next person you want to offer them is offer them, access to a webinar, or maybe lunch and learn, maybe a happy hour, maybe a white paper, depending on whatever makes sense for that specific, audience. Anonymous visitors. Now, these are all the folks who are visiting. So you want to try and, build your database. So if someone is signing in with email, you want to, you don't want to ask for email again because you've already matched them. So the next thing you can do is, how about like, all you have to do, as a information value exchange is give us your phone number and we will provide you access to the content so you don't have to repeat the information. If you are on mobile, then you want to ask for fewer form fields as opposed to desktop where you have more liberty to have more progressive profiling and to try and build your database even more. Email non-openers. So folks who have like, you sent email to but have not responded to multiple emails, you want to try and use this, remarketing as well as like, put a remarketing pixel in your last email and see if that works, or ultimately use customer match to, for email non-openers and put them, into a separate funnel to try and do that. Unsubscribers is another one, subscribers versus unsubscribers. You want to separate those out. Folks who unsubscribe, you want to have into like, because you don't have permission to email them. AdWords and the whole, customer match and remarketing framework can help you connect with them, get them back in the funnel. And this is where you need to provide valuable content. Oftentimes, ungated content works well. By geography, so you want to, GDPR seems to be a major factor in European countries, so that may be interesting, like, to try, for the more, European audiences. Ad suppression, so any existing customers or customers who your sales team has said, these accounts have said, they don't want to engage with us for the next 12 months. You want to put them in a negative, list and then a suppression list so that you don't show ads to them. And next slide, please. So at a very, at a very basic granular level, there's like, once you have, used a technology like MarianaIQ to define your audiences and the personas and build your list, the next thing you want to do is you want to look at keywords and you want to separate it by, as the industry likes to call it, tofu, mofu, and bofu. Top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel. So top of the funnel is more brand, more like generic, broad generic keywords and it's seeking more information. And middle of the funnel is more specific. It gets more long tail, if someone is looking for top of the funnel for CRM software, then or help desk software, then middle of the funnel is going to be help desk software for healthcare or for small businesses. So you want to have specific, you want to put them in specific buckets depending on the intent and the stage that they're in. And bottom of the funnel is more when they're searching for your brand. They have made a decision, they know who the players are, or they're looking for a competitor. So that's a separate bucket that you want to put them in for the accounts that you've already matched so that you can then have the right kind of, messaging. And because you're competing with the existing Google audiences and the Google ad rank and quality score plays, you want to bid as aggressively as possible. And typically, if you see average position below 2, you want to start bidding aggressively 10% more until you get to like, the 1 point something that you want to be, So you want to be top position as much because this is an audience that is more likely to convert, that your sales team has said, these are the target accounts you want to go after. These are the personas and contacts that, are more likely to buy from us. So you want to be double down and bid most aggressively on these. Then you have the ads. And in terms of ads, you want to be, you want to use it as more as a filtering mechanism. So one, you want to filter out any consumer intent. You want to filter out any career-related information. You want to filter out anyone who's a student or looking for either more information, but not really within that segment because somehow they made through a list or through similar audiences of Google, you're targeting those because they were not in the original account list. So you want to use ads as a filtering mechanism as well as a mechanism to test out different content pieces. So, depending on the stage of the funnel that they're in. Early stage, more, video and more informational, and then later stages, more case study and more involved. Invite them for a happy hour, or invite them, or just use as signals, for ABM account scoring, to reach a certain point where they, based on the intent that they have done with this, with this channel, that my sales team, my SDR should be now calling them because of the actions that they've taken. So after the ads that you've tested out, including click to call, which is interesting, to test out, especially on mobile devices, you want to lead them onto a specific landing page. And the landing page, there's lots of different elements, but the fewer the form fields that you have, the better it is. And because you have used email to match, you probably don't want to, ask. So you want to try more ungated assets, as well as use deeper funnel tracking so that you can track their journey into the funnel. And then ultimately, once they've taken some action on the landing page, you want them to feed into a marketing automation system. You want to feed them into an ABM system like Engagio or even Marketo with ABM. And you want to be able to put them into analytics dashboard to be able to track the entire journey and then pump this information back into your initial criteria for defining the audiences, as well as the kind of keywords and other strategies that you've deployed to have conversations with those depending on the stage of the funnel. Next slide, please.
Great, thanks, Sam. So now that we know that it's interesting that Google AdWords now is allowing this ability for us to unlock an ABM program and expand our ABM program as a result of this custom audience. So let's talk about ABM and also how AI can be used in order to fully leverage this new capability.
Excellent. So what you see in front of you is how we view ABM overall. So essentially, to be able to execute on ABM, you first need to figure out which accounts to go after. Second, we need to figure out who is in the account to go after. And finally, how do we support them through various channels of execution. And this, of course, rests on a groundwork of planning, reporting, and measurement, which informs all of the above. So given that this is the overall take, how exactly can we create an audience for Google AdWords? So that's the next step. So the way we execute on this is first we collect data from our customers, closed-won opportunities and contacts associated with closed-won opportunities. We integrated this with a whole bunch of data about people and companies that we have gathered. We have about 5 terabytes worth of data of about 100 million people in the U.S. Think of this as resume data, data from Twitter, usual B2B suspects like ZoomInfo, Dun & Bradstreet, and so on. So all this data helps us gather their people's roles, interests, and B2B interests, and what are the titles that they have. So based on the seed data that we get from our customers using AI, we automatically form these clusters, which we call as personas. So think of these personas as not just the titles, but this goes beyond titles by including their interests and the role that they perform within a given organization. So once you do this, you end up with a model like what you see in front of you here. This is for Mariana ourselves. The left-hand side chunks are the account segments. What you see on the right-hand side are personas. And essentially what this is saying is that for going after less than 50 employee segments, which is the first one, Mariana needs to talk to those 4 or 5 personas that segment is connected to. So again, as Sam was saying, in a given account, there are anywhere from 5 to 15 people involved in making the purchase decisions. Each of them belong to a different persona, and each of these personas differ based on which segment you are. One way to think about it is Mariana, even though when we go target, we're targeting marketing people, when we talk to small companies, we're talking to a marketing person who's a broad-based marketing person, has the interests in whole different types of marketing. On the other hand, when we talk to a large company, we're predominantly talking to someone who's in the demand gen or in the ABM organization within the marketing organization. So to make a long story short, taking historical data, marrying it with external data to come up with an account prioritization list and a people prioritization list, that's the first step. The second step is to then identify them on various channels. So again, using the account model, we can identify new accounts. And by the way, I didn't speak too much about the account model, but essentially the account models can be created based on various issues, various data, firmographic data, technographic data, and data related to the people that work within the company. So we've realized that by integrating profiles of people within the company, we're able to capture the personality of the company beyond just the usual numbers that people normally talk about. But anyway, so once we identify the accounts, we can then use the account model to identify the specific individuals. And once we identify the specific individuals, we can identify them uniquely on various channels. So the way we do this is similar to what Sam was talking about earlier. There are 3 or 4 or 5 mechanisms that we use to identify people on various channels. The first one is to because of the data that we have accumulated about people, we can identify people's Twitter's handle, for instance. So first one is to figure out their handle. The second and third mechanism is essentially the phone numbers and email addresses that you already have in your CRM. That's another mechanism that can be used. And thirdly, we can map the affinity or interest-based targeting that all of these platforms allow. We can use AI to, again, create a very targeted audience using those variables to find a very narrow set of people that you need to go after. So again, to summarize, what you can do today is take historical data, form your own models for creating which accounts to go after, use that to and create account persona models, and then target people on these various channels. One question that keeps coming up in terms of personas that we want to handle is, hey, why are AI-based personas more superior to traditional personas? So a couple of points. One is typically historical personas are created based on job titles, and that's not often enough to target people or to activate them. To give you an example, in my previous life, we created a persona model exercise, and one of the personas that came out was Debbie Data Center. Now, Debbie Data Center wakes up in the morning, she reads her New York Times, and in the weekend goes bungee jumping. Now, bungee jumping comes because people need to have a certain amount of risk tolerance to be able to get that extra oomph to go buy Juniper networking gear. However, in terms of being able to target people, knowing somebody is interested in bungee jumping is not sufficient to be able to target people. So to make a long story short, we believe that creation of personas needs to be based on the data that you can use to target them. Therefore, when you're executing on the persona, it is exactly the people that you want to reach and not everybody else. And because this is done based on machines as opposed to interviews and so on and so forth, we can do it automatically. It can be done instantaneously and kept updated as the time goes by without having to redo a whole lot of human effort. So again, to make a long story short, AI-based personas allow you to get far beyond the title, being able to create a very targeted list of people that you can then go target on these various channels. So now that we have figured out how to create the audience, I'm going to toss it over to back to Margot and Sam to figure out how to execute on this.
Great, thanks, Venkat. So, Sam, as far as the many different channels and many different paths, how do we actually execute this?
Yeah, so great question. So, you've done all the hard work of identifying your key accounts, making your sales team help you. That's the hardest thing for marketing teams to do. You've identified the contacts using different persona methods, using AI, and now you have a list. Now the next thing is your audiences, especially, keep in mind, 13 different touches and from 5 to 15 different audiences, as Venkat mentioned. So you need to talk to them in the channels that they're spending time in. So it could be paid search, that's one. It could be social media, LinkedIn, Twitter. It could be media, websites, so GoToCrowd, where a lot of folks go for reviews. It could be email. It could be retargeting across using a whole lot of different networks. So you have all these channels. So you're trying to then match the personas and the contacts that you have to each of these channels. So Twitter has tailored audiences. Facebook has custom audiences. And each one has their own method of trying to match like a specific database. So you have all these at the marketing layer, all the different channels where you match your lists and you try to leverage them. The next thing you send them to pretty much all of them is you send them to a specific, using a specific ad and filter them to the right landing page. And once you're on the landing page, it's a value exchange. You are asking them for some information, and in return, you're giving them valuable content. So it's not a hard sell, but it's more about here's something that's going to help you make a better decision. So once you know what, you've tagged them, you've tagged all the initial sources, the right keywords, the right channels, then that goes into a data warehouse like Pulse, which we have built, for example. And that is connected to the CRM. So your sales team may be like, this specific account, this specific contact has, I met them at a trade show, and here's what they had to say. They are in the market to buy in the next 6 months to 12 months. So you get all that information is popped into CRM. And that information is fed into this database also in terms of which account and which lead has a higher score. So that's a higher priority for them. And along with matching it with the marketing layer and all the marketing automation data. And once all this information is kind of compiled in this, and you know what source is leading to what stage of the funnel, then you run some sort of nurture campaign. So just running advertising campaigns is not enough. Then you need to follow up with email campaigns. Your SDR needs to call them once they hit a certain score. And all that information gets pumped back into the system. And this creates an iterative system that is often seen on an analytics dashboard. You may use Domo, you may use Tableau, whatever that you want to use, along with using an ABM platform to be able to track account scores. So it's a combination of different ABM, marketing automation, analytics dashboard systems that you need to be able to build this cyclical engine. And next slide, please. Thank you. So typically, what we see for 80% of the marketers out there is traditional tracking systems and traditional paths that they are tracking are basically, I'm spending money on the Facebooks, on the Bings, on the Googles of the world, using customer match campaigns, using other campaigns, and all they're tracking is still the lead level. So at the lead level, you have perfect information saying this keyword leads to, and lead is nothing but a form fill in the B2B world. And so you have this connection. But what happens is a lot of things then take place offline. Someone is qualifying those leads. You could have, a whole lot of different qualifying mechanisms, either manually or using, different tools. Then your sales team is interacting with them. You're running nurture campaigns to try and move them along in the funnel. How do you track the journey? And this is one of the missing pieces that can inform you in terms of what specific strategy is working for you. LinkedIn with sponsored updates works better in this stage of the funnel when this, for this type of company, the large enterprises versus the more smaller companies. AdWords with, search, provide, with some specific keywords and specific content campaigns works better. So how do you build that system is something that, that we've had to develop. So next slide, please. So from just getting lead data in, the system that we recommend and we build for a lot of clients is that you're running your campaigns across all these channels. You're generating all these leads. Then there's a sales process. You have your inside sales calling them, qualifying them. You have different email nurture campaigns. They move from MQL to SQL to opportunity. A lot of that is captured with the sync between CRM, ABM, as well as your marketing automation. And then you have attribution systems also to complicate this entire framework. And finally, ultimately, as your prospects and accounts and the users move across in the funnel, you want a system to be able to connect back. And this is where we had to develop a system called Pulse to be able to connect back. And there's also off-label tools also available, and I'm happy to talk about that offline, to connect movement across different stages of the funnel back into this database and to be able to run more effective campaigns. That I should be bidding more aggressively on Google for these specific set of audiences and keywords as opposed to on Bing, which is not as effective for me. And this helps you build a model for as you want to scale, where should I be putting in more money and what kind of audiences are working better for the outcomes that I've decided. So, yeah, thank you, Margot.
Great. Thanks, Sam. Now, let's take a look at a real live case study and see how this actually plays out as far as incorporating Google AdWords into an ABM program.
All right. So this is for one of our customers MemSQL. Now, MemSQL has been using Google AdWords for a long time, and it performed reasonably well while some of the words were getting competed over time. But they had a couple of issues. One was with respect to targeting specific accounts. The second was when they were trying to increase, when they were trying to talk to a specific use case, the cost of that cost per click was tremendously high, number one. And number two, the keyword was too generic to point to only the use case that they have. MemSQL is an in-memory database company, and in this particular keyword, they wanted to use predictive analytics. But as us marketers know, predictive marketing analytics is too broad a keyword to target just the application that they were looking to target. So a lot of the clicks that they were getting were wasted, and simply because they were not in the target audience, or at least for the target use case that they were going for. So when they came to us, we looked at the accounts that they had, which is essentially Fortune 5,000. We scored the accounts based on the models that we created, and based on the various mechanisms of targeting between customer match and affinity-based targeting and so on and so forth, we targeted those specific individuals on on Google AdWords so that they could run the campaign. So a couple of key points. One is a 40% reduction of cost for the top performing words, essentially because this was targeting only the audience that they were going after. The percentage of people who were filling out a form after the click went up, and they didn't get wasted conversions. And equally importantly, the conversion from a form fill to a sales qualified lead also went up by about 30-40%. So net, the cost of on a cost per lead basis, they saved about 40%, and then if you base it on a cost per sales qualified lead, and sales qualified account, it increased. It went down further to about 70% reduction or so. So to make a long story short, they were able to go after a keyword that's extremely prevalent and very high volume keyword, but they were able to do it at a lower cost, thereby changing the three-part equation that Sam was talking about earlier between cost, volume, and quality. And by having this new audience, we need to rethink how the strategy is within the three-legged stool of cost, quality, and volume. But because we are able to target the audience, you can bid more aggressively for certain accounts and not for certain accounts, for certain personas and not for certain personas, to drive the goals that you're looking for. So that's one case study that we've been successful with. There are many more in the pipe and many more to come, and hopefully be able to report it in future to you guys. Michael?
Great, thanks, Venkat. Any questions from the audience? Well, I know I have one question here, just to kind of clarify things, I think, which some of you may be thinking. But, I mean, Venkat, if a company is investing in data and has an ABM and has a list of their target accounts, could they just simply upload their list of contacts or do this on their own? How is AI really impacting this custom audience?
Yeah. So this is an important question. So presumably, a lot of our customers do have email addresses of the people that they're looking to target, and you can find a match. A couple of points. Because of the data that we have gathered, the match rates that we get on email addresses can be higher. So to put this in perspective, Google. So my email address is Venkat@MarianaIQ.com, but it used to be Venkat@Juniper.net, Venkat_Nagaswamy@McKinsey.com, and so on and so forth. So because of the data that we've collected, even if you're looking to target Venkat Nagaswamy, we can look at other past emails for Venkat Nagaswamy to be able to get a better match rate on Google. So to make because of the data that we've collected, we are able to map not only the current professional persona to email addresses, but professional persona to personal persona, and to multiple email addresses to be able to drive the match rates better on Google AdWords or any other platform for that matter.
Interesting.
And actually, one other point I should make is that because we understand the semantics, or rather, more precisely, our AI understands the semantics, using affinity-based targeting and interest-based targeting also gets easier because we can narrowly focus on a set of affinities and interests that can find a very narrow set of audience for you.
Great, thanks. Just any other questions from our audience? I think we have a question here from someone, from Lauren. If you want to address your question in the question, I can read it out loud in order to. Oh, never mind. Thanks, Lauren. All right, well, it looks like we have no further questions. We're running up against the clock. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We will send out the deck later. If you have any other follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Sam or at Position², or also Venkat or myself, Margaret Pulverman at MarianaIQ. So thank you all, and have a good day.